And coming here live from Hari Park Society over here in Gujarat. We're here with the 59th edition, count it, 59th edition of Grand Platypus Open, number 59. I'm, of course, your host, Yakuzaku of Yakuzaku, and with me today is El Cortapapeles que se ha convertido en un destripador como en los diarios de vampiros. Light_VIP. How we doing, Light?
Did you just relate me to the Vampire Diaries?
Yeah. It rhymed.
What's up, Yaku? We're here. We are back. We are back with some beautiful StarCraft with some Aussie on Aussie action, mate.
That we are a bit of a grudge match happening. I think this second week in a row, we're going to see this particular matchup. Starting off here on Romantic side, LE, of course, starting for Lovers Excavation over in the bottom right-hand corner map, starting all the way in the bottom right-hand corner. The Pink Protoss player coming down from Sydney, ABBA. He is representing Fight for Justice. He is StarDuck.
And spawning in at the top left-hand corner of Romanticide LE, we have the Australian Terran. He is, of course, representing Legacy Esports, one of the Brisbane boys. It is Azure.
We got to see a lot from these two last week. Was it last week or was it 2 weeks ago? I'm trying to blank on the specific time frame, but it was recent. It was last week. It's so good. It's so
good.
Yeah.
If you recall, I believe last week these two faced each other, and the week before that it was Azure versus Oreo. So
that's
yeah,
what I think it was.
Yeah. So I love it. You know, Azure, he has been going up against quite a few of his countrymen recently.
Yeah. So that's a good practice for that ANZ champs that's, of course, creeping its way ever so closer. I'm starting to remember a couple more details now, actually. It's coming back to me. I believe it was a 2-0 in the favor of Azure, but it was two very, very close games that went to, I believe one of them went up till half an hour.
Yeah, they were incredibly close. Each game, even though it was a 2-0, they really could have gone either way. So yeah, it's really exciting to see both of them at it again. And more importantly, the winner of this series, I didn't mention it in the lobby chat before, but we have a returning player, a famed player.
Indeed we do. He is, or was for the longest time, the biggest fish in the pond, if you will. Of course, before the times of Mio Micah, we are, of course, talking about Demi.
Yes, before the cat, there was a shark. There was a dominant force in our tournament in Grand Platypus Open, and that was Demi, of course. And right here, we have his old rival. We have the Shark Hunter himself, but we'll see if he can face him once again.
Indeed, we will. And Azure, he's been getting his harpoon ready. He wants to be able to face Demi, but he's got to be able to bag a duck before he can do that.
Yeah, and it's not your ordinary duck, mate. It's a space duck. It's it's crazy.
You really got to triangulate around to catch that.
Yeah, it defies the laws of gravity, mate. I don't know how it works. It's 18 years old and it's already almost as good as, you know, some of these old school players that have been competing for years. So we'll see. Well, as you said last time, Azure did come out on top.
Indeed, he did. We'll see if StarDuck has something a little bit different planned here. It appears that he does. I'm gonna go for more of a Blink style, how you want to say, aggressive opening, since we are on Romanticide, and I know StarDuck likes to pull this off every now and then. Tries to go into the main with his Blink Stalkers, but yeah, we'll see how dedicated he's going to be to this.
Definitely, we shall see as the Blink Stalkers are coming across the map at the very same time the Banshees move out of the main base of Azure. He is working on his cloak as he did open up with a 1-1-1, no Widowmine drops or anything of the sort on the way, and he does run into the War Prison, so he can maneuver his army.
He very much can. He does not want to lose that Banshee before Cloak finishes up, though. The Observer is still a little bit of a ways off. And Cloak is still 10 seconds away. Azure has to be so careful. That is going to be his main source of defense, at least when the Stalkers are on the ground.
Yeah, and he bought enough time where the tank is done. What's worrisome is the tank isn't siege. It's quite vulnerable, to be honest, especially since a couple more Stalkers have warped in. StarDuck, he wants to deal some damage. He wants to pick off these units and get on top of the tank. The one prism! Ah!
Almost goes down, but barely stays alive. Here's the thing, though, because those Stalkers were focusing on the Marines, tank was able to survive for a lot longer and was able to chip away even more at all of these Stalkers. Blink's right underneath these Banshees. Cloak has to stop the Observer, actually a little bit out of position here.
Oh my god, and you know what?
Pokemon gets picked up first. The Observer is the answer.
Exactly, the Observer gets sniped. No detection here for StarDuck. StarDuck has dealt a lot of damage, but he's looking to deal so much more, especially because, again, he was kind of committed to this, and it looks like he's forced back.
Yeah, he really had two different options here. Either warp in more Stalkers and go for an assault, or go back, get ready for round 2. Actually, it seems like he's going to get his cake and eat it too.
Well, yeah, luckily for StarDuck, he already had a second Observer going across the map, so he was able to meet up with it, deal with the Banshee, and we see that this isn't the only thing up his sleeve. He is slowly chipping away at the Force here, at the natural. Behind this, StarDuck is going for Disruptors, or Colossus.
Yeah, rip pathing here on the SCVs. Can really go either way at this point. I think Colossus is a lot more effective in the PvT matchup, but if you manage to get good with your Disruptors, it's not entirely unreliable.
Definitely. And enough time has passed where Azure, sure, he lost all his Banshees in the end, which means he couldn't harass across the map, but he survived, right? Like, he has 2 tanks, one in his main, one in between his natural and his main, so he's kind of completely covered. To be fair, though, his main is looking a little bit vulnerable. Like, StarDuck could just blink on in and just one-shot the tank and just snowball from there.
Oh, he absolutely could. There's no bunker protecting that high ground tank. Oh, but a little bit of a questionable maneuver over here for StarDuck. Blinks on top of the tank, and he was able to pick it off, but aside from that, just getting a handful of Marines and losing a lot of Stalkers.
Yeah, exactly. We do see, for the most part, his blinks have been on point, but a couple of Stalkers have been falling, and he just hasn't really been able to have that snowball effect that I'm sure he wanted. Oh, the tank!
But he might get it pretty soon. I will say this Observer is a little bit far away. I mean, okay, it actually does cover quite a bit, but you know, it's not exactly deep inside that main base.
And
doesn't entirely know what's going on.
And what's scary is that Azure actually has no vision right now. Like, StarDuck, he's actually warping more and more Stalkers in. Okay, Azure is going to check. Oh wait, he sees.
He sees one Stalker, and where there's one Stalker, there's plenty more behind that. Thankfully, that was the tank able to see shot behind the other tank. But it's not entirely, he's not entirely out of this, Azure isn't. Stim is still a little bit of a ways off, but once it's completed, I mean, there's still a hefty amount of bio over here.
Yeah, exactly, and there we go. He does force the entire Protoss army out of his main base. Again, StarDuck, there was a lot of potential there, but he took a really long time to really commit to anything. And Azure, he has been able to defend on 2 bases, but StarDuck, he expanded behind this.
He did expand, but he hasn't saturated that 3rd base yet, which is a little bit worrisome here.
Definitely.
It's totally fine for the Terran player to delay the 3rd base when their Protoss opponent's being aggressive like this, so long as they, make sure they have an orbital command up and are able to main art all the RCVs over.
Yeah, it looks like
so economically, Azure is not entirely far behind, and in terms of the mineral income, he's well ahead.
Yeah, as we see, like, he has his 3rd ready and waiting. He's looking to try and land it on location. Got plenty of SCVs going, being main arted there as we speak. So he's perfectly fine right now. StarDuck, again, he traded army for the most part. And to be fair, he did get some nice, juicy, high-tech units. I believe, there we go, 3 tanks went down, 2 Banshees went down, 18 Marines. He traded fairly well, but we see he lost 21 Stalkers in the process.
He absolutely did. And StarDuck is going to have to continue to buy himself as much time as he can before he gets that, death ball arm he really wants to achieve. A War Pistol will go down, and that is done. That was the main thing keeping Azure back this entire time. And now he's free to push across the map. He's just, scoping out what StarDuck has over here with his Banshee.
Ooh, that he does. The Banshee does get picked off. Not a lot of workers. There was some lost mining time, and more importantly, as you said, he was able to scout the production. He saw both of the Colossus as well, so he is well aware of what the army is going to be looking like, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see soon a switch into Vikings or some other commitment here for Azure to go across the map, because again, his army is quite large.
It absolutely is. Taking it a little bit cautious though, which I think we kind of know Azure for being. He would much rather, you know, hang back with his siege up units and then go for a couple of drops, try to force his Protoss opponent into him as opposed to going for big timing attacks.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the ideal scenario, especially with tanks, right? Like, you want to be or pre-sieged in a defensive position and have the Protoss army push into you, right? Instead of the other way around, where you might be caught unsieged. As we see, the switch into Vikings has begun, and Azure is looking to split off his army, looking to go for a couple of drops. Azure confirms the 4th base.
Yeah, as well as this location. So again, just working on trying to make sure and keep his Protoss opponent behind economically. Here comes StarDuck and his entire army, and here comes Azure with his main defensive force. Oh
my god, and just like that, one tank does get picked off almost for free there. StarDuck does back off after that. Meanwhile, we do see the drop that, I say drop, really, they just waddled around the entire map. And it did get spotted by the observer.
It did, so StarDuck is starting to get prepared over here. A little bit questionable of Azure to move down from that high ground location in defense.
Yeah, but you know what?
He's what I have to say.
Yeah, he's distracting the army, right? He only lost a handful of Marines, and meanwhile, the main army of Azure is pushing across that. Ooh, snipes the War Prism.
And that was uber important over here. But Azure is not pushing out all the way. He just wanted to get that War Prism and make sure, you know, StarDuck wouldn't be able to apply any pressure on him as he takes a 4th base. So, yeah, we should be seeing a bit of a slower one. Think it's what we expected coming out from Romanticide, but yeah. Azure definitely sort of turning down chances to push out in favor of being safer, I think.
I mean, he's lost a fair amount of tanks throughout this game. I'm sure if the losses were a little bit smaller, then he would be more willing to go across the map. So I don't really blame him. And I believe it was Azure versus StarDuck. That long game that we were talking about was a game where StarDuck kind of took a really long time to eventually tech into late game Sky Toss. Took him a very long time, and he was kind of stuck on the ground. And as a result, Azure was trading much more favorably. It was a lot easier for him to really contend with. And that could be something that we see here.
Yeah, StarDuck not really being as greedy as I think he definitely can be. Very defensive over here. That's a nice pick off. But now Azure, he has reached a point where he figures, you know what? I've got a pretty good defensive setup with my tanks and my Vikings. I am going to go for massive multi-prongs.
Exactly. The 4th base does go down. StarDuck was completely out of position. The entire army forced to maneuver here to try and defend it. Meanwhile, Azure once again drops into... Okay, it's not much. It's only 3 Marines. But this does force a reaction from StarDuck. StarDuck losing that base, he has to do something.
He absolutely does. And that's a lot of tanks over here, Light. In a pretty terrible position, honestly, for the Protoss player to move into. Even if they get their surround, there's just so many choke points here that those tanks are absolutely utilizing. High Templar straggling behind, and then Colossus getting picked off with 0 buffer.
Sure. I just realized I was quickly checking the upgrades, mate. There's no storm. What's the purpose of these high Templar? They got plenty of energy for
feedback.
For feedback? Question mark? It could be something that slipped a StarDuck's mind. Meanwhile, 12 probes went down. I think maybe to those 3 Marines.
I would like to hope so.
3
Marines with stim plus medevac support. You do not want to underestimate that, even if you have a shield battery.
Exactly. And now Azure is pushing out across the map. Sure, there are disruptors. One shot does go off, which is quite nice, but oh god, there's just nothing stopping Azure, and this is all that StarDuck has.
Absolutely is. And we're starting to see Azure just grow bigger and bigger when it comes to his army, and he is starting to really surround this.
Oh yeah, exactly. Colossus gets taken out. Nice tank shots as well on the main army, and again, the disruptors, there's just not enough of them. There's not enough to buffer for them. The Marine just stimps forward.
And that was a pretty good purification over, but yeah, StarDuck is going to have to replicate that 1,000 times over in order to come back in this game.
Exactly, and it's not going to happen, especially when his disruptors are getting picked off. Ay, ay, ay.
Dios mío, papi.
Ah.
Not quite there. Oh! Hot pickup coming out from Azure. And with that, he is just choking the life out of... What is he attacking? Oh.
That's the gateway.
Gateway.
He doesn't even need to. It must have been a misclick there, but yeah, just accidentally attacking the gateway. Meanwhile, there's a small zealot run by, but maybe there's a planetary. There's plenty of SCVs to just give it that big, juicy hug of life to the planetary. Nice disruptor shots, but as you said, he's got to do so much more than that, and he just doesn't have it in him.
Does.
Oh my god!
Oh wow! Every time I think Azure is gonna be able to split perfectly, somehow the purification Nova of StarDuck hits a second earlier than I expect. But GG, Azure does take game number 1. Being very patient and really forcing StarDuck to go into him. This is why they call him the Fisherman.
There you
but
go.
he fishes for sharks instead of fish.
Yeah. Exactly. I want that fan art of Azure with a harpoon. Oh.
Harpoon gun. He has an eye patch on.
Exactly. To his detriment. It affects his depth perception. There's the reason why Demi comes out on top more often than not.
Yeah. He comes out from the side where he has the eye patch on.
Exactly. Oh, good. But as we wait for the map choice for StarDuck, do want to give him some shout outs in the chat. Of course, Lord Loken is here cheering for his son, his firstborn. I don't know if Lord Loken actually has kids, and if he does, I hope they're not watching when I say
You know,
they go to their mom. They're like, I saw on TV. Dad has another kid.
that we were never told about. Honestly, earlier today, I saw on Twitter. It's actually some pretty big news coming out from, I believe it was Toast. It was guess who's getting another kid? I swear to God, I almost replied at Lord Loken ?
Yeah, shout out to Toast, of course, the ex Dank Shrine or Dank Pro team leader, as well as host of the podcast, the Dank Shrine. He has getting another kid.
Yeah. Wait, when you say getting another kid,
what do you mean that means?
I think that means it's like a Lord Loken route.
maybe. Oh god.
Just pluck him, like how he plucked me a mic up from the street.
Is that what happens?
I mean, he can confirm or deny it. He's here in the chat. But that is enough about that. Instead, we are going to be continuing our PVT here on Jagannatha KBBLE, where we're here in the top right-hand corner map, starting all the way in the top right-hand corner. The pink Protoss player coming down from the land of Sitniaba. He is flying high. He has been able to evade the harpoon for a while, but let's see if he can turn the tables and shoot it back? ? I'm not sure where I was going in that analogy. He is representing Fight for Justice. He is StarDuck.
And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of Jagannatha LE, we have the Aussie Protoss. He's blue. He's representing Legacy Esports. Already up 1-0 in this best of 3. It is Azure.
And I have to wonder if Azure is going to be pulling off the same strategy that he had in Romanticide, where he's just going to rely a bit more on drops and force StarDuck into him. Jagannatha is definitely one of the maps where you have to build in a specific way, I think, when it comes to your opening, but it's definitely a map where timing attacks are really effective.
Yeah, I was about to say that I don't know if Azure is going to necessarily do the same like opening as in like 1-1-1 into Banshees, but I like the idea of him going for the same strategy as you were saying, you know, going for these drops, kind of, you know, pushing StarDuck's multitasking to the limit, because we have seen that that is something that StarDuck can struggle with. It's something that he is still as a newer, less experienced player is something that he's still working on, being able to defend on multiple fronts at once. And yo, Azure, oh boy.
Well, turns out he is not, in fact, going for the same opening in particular.
Oh my.
Yeah, he is completely skipped out on a Reaper here, Light. He is saving that gas for something. Tech Lab, come on, Tech Lab, Tech Lab.
We could.
Tech Lab, build Tech Lab, and then a medevac. Come on.
Oh, I was about to say, normally you see proxy starport, but what's interesting about Azure is that he didn't make the factory at home. For whatever reason, he opted not to go for that, and both factory and starport are being proxied.
That they are. I feel like this might be a Jagannatha specific thing, like, because if we look at the angle that he's gonna go for. By the way, StarDuck is 0 scouting whatsoever. I mean, he knows that Azure skipped down the Reaper, so he's trying to do something cheeky, but he has no clue in particular. He's making shield batteries in the forward location, like
exactly. So he is prepared to lose his main, is what StarDuck is doing right now. He's like, oh my god, there's nothing on the natural. You skipped your Reaper. There are plenty of Marines at home. I think he assumes that maybe like a 3-ax is coming his way or something, like being Marine all in. He has no idea that Hellions are about to be dropped in the mineral line.
I love it, and there's even this dark patch where StarDuck has no vision.
True.
He is trying to go for a dark shrine because, you know, if you, what's the old mantra? When unscouted, invisible boys.
That's sure.
That's the rhyme.
Yeah, that's
the Protoss saying.
Exactly, that's the old saying laid down by Sun Tzu himself. Actually, as here we go, the drop is going in. Unscouted.
He has vision on this. Completely unscouted. That is just enough Hellions to start one-shotting at these probes. And there we go. Completely getting chipped away. I will say that because of the SimCity of StarDuck, Azure, he's going to have to pull something interesting to scout the Dark Shrine. And actually, I think he just saw it.
Yeah, he did just see it, and workers are still going down. 11 probes, and I mean, StarDuck, it's gonna be like he has to somehow try and equalize, somehow try and deal as much damage across the map, but I just can't see that happening.
Well, he has the Dark Shrine, which, you know, ideally would be unscouted. But I will say that even though it was scouted, it's gonna take a little bit of resources for. He's already building a turret. Never mind.
Yeah, I was about to say the DT is going across the map. As you said, turret is in the main. So the one good thing about this is that I guess StarDuck, he could delay the natural base for scans to be used if he wants to go to the low ground, but a lot of that relies on these DTs staying alive.
Which I don't think they will. Well, one of them will fall. And one will sort of hang around. I'm just looking at StarDuck's base right now because the Liberator is coming out from Azure, and I believe he's built nothing but Adepts so far. Adepts and DTs. He's got 1 Stalker. That ain't gonna be enough.
Yeah, it's gonna take a while. It's gonna take quite some time to deal with the Liberator. Oh god, and Liberator, it's already in.
There we go. Hasn't got any kills here, but it's only mining time for quite a bit. I'm really liking that angle of the Liberation Zone. It's going to be really tough for a Stalker to come in without taking some damage. Oh, actually, unsieges.
Yep, he is in that dead space. He actually cannot be hit whatsoever by that Stalker. And we'll see how all-in StarDuck is, because he actually went for Charge. Charge is completed, and oh my god, he's working on Blink for his DTs.
Yeah, might as well at this point. Perhaps a big charge hit all in. It's gonna hit with a lot less units than StarDuck would have liked, again, because of how much worker damage he's taken. But I suppose that's one way of turning this game around.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Marines still. And
exactly.
Marines, they scale extremely well. You get them into the smallest of choke points, and they will shell away at the charge lots. Yeah.
That's the worrisome thing. Like, there's no tanks, there's no Widowmines for the moment, but like just the insane amount of Marines out right now. Let me just quickly check, as we have 22 Marines and 2 Marauders. Like, there's so much power in this army.
Absolutely. I mean, conventional wisdom will tell you that in TvP you don't want that many Marines because obviously Stalkers and whatnot, maybe Colossus, you want to have more Marauders in the mix. StarDuck is literally going for the most Marine-friendly unit composition.
Oh boy. Oh boy. We'll see.
I'm
We'll
not sure
see.
Marine-friendly is the right term, but, you know, it's what you want to see if you're a Terran player going Marines.
Exactly. Thankfully, finally, StarDuck does deal with the Liberator. The Liberator did get 2 worker kills, so he doesn't have to worry about that. There we go. Nothing but Charge are being morphed in. We still have those. Sorry, nothing but Zealots are being morphed in. We still have those DTs, and Blink is done. We haven't really seen Blink utilized in any way at the moment, and this is kind of a weird timing where he's attacking, but the War Prism only just started.
Yeah, well, he's got to hit with whatever he's got whenever he can. He pulls away once he realizes, wait a minute, there's no way I'm going to be able to sustain this attack without a Warp Prism, especially against a player like Azure, who in the previous game has shown how well he can really defend against Protoss. Maybe I should wait a little while, but yeah, as he waits up, I mean, +1 finished up. There's going to be more medevacs out, some Widow Mines.
Speaking of medevacs,
double-edged sword.
We have a drop headed into the main base. There's nothing here. Recall is available. There is no energy in the main base though for it. And there we go. The drop does go in. Only a single zealot to defend. Oh boy.
Yeah, I guess you also don't want to utilize recall when you're going for a big all-in, and that is just about all of the chances, I think, of StarDuck turning this game around. Azure, he's starting to really envelop StarDuck from everywhere. For the main base, he's pushing in from into the natural base location. StarDuck is trying to hit with whatever force he has, but I'm not convinced he's going to do too much.
I mean, we're basically in a base trade at this point. You know, the entire army of StarDuck is across the map. Meanwhile, the entire army of Azure is across the map. It's just that Azure just has so much more DPS, so much more supply. He should be able to clean this up so much faster. I guess recall isn't. No, recall is not available. Like, the Nexus is like yeah. Oh god.
Nexus and that's done. I do like how he utilized Blink over here. Takes out the turret, and that's the majority of the detection here for Azure. Does have a lot of scans still available to him though, and as you said, Azure has so much DPS, it doesn't matter that he doesn't have recall.
On top of that,
turn around at any point and he'll be able to crush the army of StarDuck.
Exactly. As we see, the DTs are even struggling to deal with the workers. To be fair, the workers could be pulled and they may even be able to clean all of this up. Well, what am I does go off?
Turret?
Yes. Turret's not up.
Yeah.
But you know,
he is so calm and collected right now. He's like, yeah, this is fine.
It
literally
is,
that mean.
Yeah, I mean, it is fine. Things are on fire, but this is fine. He can lift up his buildings. He can fly.
It really is.
He can fly away. There's only one Nexus remaining for StarDuck, and it's about to be revealed. It's about to be spotted. I say that it should be. So far, it hasn't.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't gotten the tick that says there is a base out somewhere, and you know, for all Azure knows, and he might think, you know, StarDuck, he's being a little bit cheeky. This is tournament life on the line, so he's gonna. Oh, he lifts!
Ah, he gets denied!
To get thrown down, and Azure thinks that that's the main.
Azure still doesn't know about the third, mate. He still has no idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really gonna matter in the end too much. Looking at the army supply, StarDuck will be able to recognize. Yeah, there's really nothing I can do against all that bio eventually.
Mate, there's no scans.
Actually, yeah. Maybe if a DT comes out? No,
I mean, the DTs are just like the DTs are attacking the main army is why I brought it up. Like, they are killing this. All right, CC lands.
Well, there we have it. GG's call, and Azure will be showing off his dominance in the matchup once again. He wanted to face his old rival. GG.
GG. Well played. Azure does take down the Australian StarDuck, the Australian Protoss, and as you said, will move on in the bracket to face his old rival, his old nemesis, the Shark himself. Mate, it is Demi.